up, though, everybody? This is Kyle. You are back watching, listening, consuming. However the hell you're watching it, you're watching Knockouts and Three Counts, and we appreciate you. We've got a very special guest with us tonight. If you guys are wrestling fans, you probably already know their show. If you don't, you're living under a rock. We've got the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Dave LaGreca. How you doing? The host of Busted Open Radio.
What's up, boys? How are you?
Hey, man, we're surviving this snow. So I know you're in Jersey, man. Did you guys get any snow today?
No, actually, it was 77 degrees today. So I think we're out of the snow portion of the year for sure.
Yeah,
I feel gypped at this point, man.
You thought that too? Well, you guys have snow for 7 months out of the year.
You ain't kidding.
You know, we thought we were done. We were just the last week. It actually reached a high of like 79, just short of 80. And then the very next week, man, here we are with the short bit of snowfall. It was one thing when it was just a little bit floating through the air, but now it's starting to stick, man. We probably got 2 inches on the ground out there right now.
Oh, that's crazy, man. No, I think we're done with that. That's scary.
I was hoping you were at least going to tell me that with you coming from Jersey that you guys were going to be like, we're getting it too, because, it's funny. We were talking before we went on the air, man. This is 3 trips out of the state this year. I went to Texas 3 times, and I went to Florida for Revolution. And even for Florida for Revolution, it rained the whole damn time. So we've been getting bombed from the weather from the jump. But before we get into about you, which is the real reason why everybody's here, go ahead, throw your social media out, and please let everybody know where they can check out Busted Open if they haven't already done so.
All right, appreciate that. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at David LaGreca 1, the number 1. You could check out Busted Open on Sirius XM Fight Nation, live from 9 to noon, Monday through Saturday on channel 156 on Sirius XM. And then now we're available on podcast on Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, and Apple. We have a new podcast 7 days a week. So, and there's a new one on Sundays that drop. It's called Busted Open the Masters Class. And that's with myself, Bully, Tommy, and Mark. So it's a lot of Busted Open. And then you can also get a Cameo. I'm available on Cameo. My shirt's on Pro Wrestling Tees.
Yeah, I got quite the surprise for you when we get into town, Texas. Yeah,
right.
You might see a LaGreca head, man.
Dude, I got the LaGreca heads in the back. If you can see, I got a LaGreca.
Oh, I can see him. So tell me a little bit about that, man. So, you mentioned Busted Open. As I admitted, full disclosure, I listen to you guys every day. Tell me a little bit about that, man. I know you came over from the world of the NFL, and I know a little bit as to how you got into broadcasting, but tell me what prompted, a move to go straight to an all wrestling show like Busted Open, and what did the grassroots of that look like for you?
Well, dude, it was a long fight because, like you said, I worked for NFL. I did NFL for 13 years, and Busted Open started with myself and Doug Mortman, who's now a bigwig with Sirius XM. He's a VP, but we did it just as a passion project, once a week for an hour, and then the show just started snowballing from there. And then about 3 years ago is when it really blew up, and I got offered to do it 5 days a week, and we brought in Mark, and we brought in Tommy, and we brought in Bully. And like I said, Doug kind of went off and did his own thing, which he's doing. He's big props and big success. He's a founding father, but dude, it was a long road. It took a long time. It took about a good 8-9 years before it finally took off to be what it is now. So, I always tell, every show I go on, you start small and stick with it, and hopefully things work out. It definitely worked out with us on Sirius.
Well, you see
man,
a lot actually in the podcast realm and stuff. Shows don't necessarily tend to get traction until they've been around for quite a few years and kind of build up that back catalog. Like, you might have your loyal fanhood, but for the most part, it's kind of the traction that keeps going, and you hopefully can get a couple people that'll continually share your stuff, like stuff, and comment and keep the activity going, because that's the big difference there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just grassroots, and then we got a good hardcore following. The nation has been loyal almost since day one. And then, obviously bringing in a Bully and a Mark and a Tommy, those guys just brought the show to another level, brought a whole bunch of their fans in, a big new fan base, and like we've been lucky. I mean, we've built this audience to be the #1 sports talk show on Sirius XM. So I'm very grateful for everybody like you guys that listen and support and tweet, and man, it means a lot to me. So this is kind of like a dream realized to be able to do this show and make it my career, make it my livelihood, because it wasn't always that way. And I took a big chance leaving the NFL to do this, but it's definitely worked out for me.
Well, that brings up a good question. I mean, again, you being a fan of wrestling as long as you've been, and getting to see it from the other side, which for me, that's been one of the biggest things since we've gotten to work a couple of the star casts and things like that. Now it's, that's been one of the biggest things is you kind of see wrestling different, right? Like when you get to start to interview these people, it's not the same as just watching it straight as a fan. Still a fan, but it's a little different. What are the biggest things for you, being a lifelong fan and all that you've seen? What are the biggest changes you see in wrestling now as opposed to when you first started watching?
Well, when I first started watching, I started watching in 1982. So like then it was, you weren't really sure. Is this real? Is this not real? Like, I'm from Jersey, but I was exposed to wrestling with the NWA. So I remember going by my buddy's house in early 1982, and he was watching Georgia Championship Wrestling. And I didn't know anything about wrestling. So he was like, "Do you watch wrestling?" I go, "Isn't that fake?" And he was like, "What? No." He goes, "This is the NWA. The NWA is real. The WWF, that stuff's fake, but this stuff is real." So I was like, "Really?" So I started watching it thinking like that this was real. And like for a whole year, I just watched Georgia Championship Wrestling on Saturdays. I didn't watch anything else but Georgia Championship Wrestling until I started buying the magazines. And so like then I wasn't really sure. It was a magical time because you didn't know the lines were kind of blurred. Now now the curtain's been, peeled back so far that there is no more of that magic anymore, which is unfortunate, but that's the biggest difference from when I started watching wrestling as a fan to now is that, man, the cat's completely out of the bag now.
Yeah. Do you see any possible chance that can ever gets closed again? I know once it's open, it's kind of open.
Yeah, I think once it's open, but there's other ways you can do it. There's other ways where you could be like, well, is that a shoot or is that not, surprises and certain things like that. There's still magic in pro wrestling. So there's still, it's never ever going to be the same that it was 35, 40 years ago, but there's still things about it now that I still love. And it's like Christmas morning sometimes where you get excited like you were a kid again. So there's still those moments.
So that led into a question that I had for you. It's funny, I agree with you. Obviously, with the door being opened as far as it is now, I mean, it's going to be hard to ever close it. But I think one of the biggest things that I think all wrestlers, male, female, promoter, whatever, I think one of the biggest ways that we could see that change again, and I think for the good, which would help storylines and everything, is just the use of social media, right? Because I've heard you talk about it on the show before too. Sometimes it's like a huge disconnect when you'll see like two people who are feuding, and then you look at social media and they're all buddy within like the next week or whatever. When back in the day, I think social media and that door being open changed it so much, but I feel like there's a select few that if you watch the way they use their social media, they only use it for little things. And I think that's one of the biggest ways I think we could see a change in something like that.
Yeah, and a good example of that would be like 2 years ago before WrestleMania 35, the way that Ronda, Becky, and Charlotte were going back and forth on social media. And it was completely different than what you were seeing played out on Monday Night Raw. Like they were really going at it, which made you think, all right, they're not using this on the TV show. So is this real? Like, is there really animosity between these three? So like, that's a way you could do it for the positive, you know? It's a fine line, but some wrestlers really know how to use their social media in that way to kind of enhance the story that's going on TV.
All right. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it because I know you're a straight wrestling guy. Our show also covers boxing and MMA as well. You brought up the name Ronda Rousey. What are your thoughts on all the guys that we've seen, guys or girls, that have made that transition from MMA to wrestling, or wrestlers that have gone and tried their hand at MMA? For you being a diehard wrestling guy and being in the game so long, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, I was around when Brock first started to get into the world of MMA, and there was a show on Sirius XM called Fight Club that's not around anymore. And I just remember the guys with that show were like, "Oh, Brock's going to get his ass kicked. This isn't pro wrestling. I know he was a collegiate wrestler, but that was years ago. This is going to be a completely different world for him, and there's no way he's going to be successful." And then, he turned out to be the UFC champion, So, and I think Ronda made an awesome transition from the world of MMA into pro wrestling. I mean, there's a lot of Ronda haters. I don't get it. I thought she was awesome in the ring, awesome in the mic. I thought she did a great job. And then you have the CM Punks who tried to make the transition and failed. So I think both worlds kind of benefit from it, right? I mean, I think the world of the UFC, their pay-per-view buys are up when Brock's around, the Punk's around. And like Ronda, hey, if it wasn't for Ronda, would that match have been the main event at WrestleMania?
No.
So I think both worlds have benefited. And now you're even seeing like a Jimmy Smith who's on our channel. He was strictly a UFC guy and Bellator, and he was a pro wrestling fan when he was a kid, but he hadn't watched wrestling in 20 years, and now you see him hosting a takeover. So whether the fans like it or not, there's definitely a connection between MMA and pro wrestling.
Yeah,
I'm so glad to hear you say that, because with Jimmy Smith, especially because he follows me on Twitter, and literally as soon as I heard that he was going to go on to the takeover pre-show, I'm like, hell yeah, now this is what I'm talking about. And I actually picked his brain a little bit on, what his thoughts were. And it was cool to see somebody from the MMA realm be able to come in and not only do it, but I felt like be able to pick it up well. Because sometimes, like we're seeing with the current commentary with Adnan Virk and stuff like that, I would go as far to say, and I think you'd probably agree, you see Pat McAfee on SmackDown, fits in like a glove. Adnan Virk, I think it's going to take him a little while. Jimmy, I feel like, was able to kind of just pick it up and go, which doesn't always seem to be the case, especially with a guy from MMA that's coming to wrestling.
And I think NXT is a good gateway, because NXT, as far as the WWE is, that's probably the closest thing to like that, fighting spirit and the strong style. So I think it's a little bit of an easier transition for Jimmy Smith. Pat McAfee, lifelong fan. He's passionate about it, loves it. Like Raw, like to jump into the lead chair on Monday Night Raw. And Adnan Virk, listen, I hope it works out. But man, like they should have probably had him start with main event, and work his way up. To just throw him on Raw, that's like throwing him into the deep end of the pool. And you could tell like he really doesn't know wrestling. Like Corey Graves is really taking over that lead role, because I don't even think he knows like the moves, or like
no,
you're hearing like the German suplex and stuff, and the Fez press and that back body drop. I don't even think he knows the basics well, because really it's Corey that's calling all that stuff. So they probably should have had him start slowly before you just throw him in to the lead chair on Raw.
I completely agree with that. And that leads into a question that I had that goes good for Corey as well. So Corey is more the MMA guy on our show. I got him to watch his first WrestleMania since we were probably kids. This past WrestleMania, I got him to watch TakeOver and then WrestleMania. Obviously not the best one to start back with, but that brings a good question to a fellow lifelong fan like myself. Since you're talking to so many different ends of the spectrum as far as wrestling fans go, whether it be casual fans or lifelong fans or whatever, what would you say for somebody that's been, out of wrestling for a while? What would you tell them to watch? And that could be NXT, that could be something back from the old days, it could be whatever you want. What do you think would be the perfect thing for somebody who maybe hasn't watched in a while to check out, and that be like, this is why we love pro wrestling for you?
That's a great question, because like for someone like you that's, dedicated to the fight game, and you got the Mets hat on, and I'm interested about why the Mets hat, but that's a question for another time. But I would suggest for you, if you're like into combat sports but not really into wrestling, I would recommend MLW, because MLW's got a really good hybrid style with MMA and with lucha and with your basic mat pro wrestling. So I would probably suggest MLW. If you're going to go old school, I'd probably suggest like mid 80s, like Crockett, like that 85, 86 NWA. Those would probably be like the two things that I would recommend for somebody that either hasn't watched wrestling in a while or hasn't watched at all. Those are two really good gateway, especially if you're a combat sports fan.
Well,
so it's funny you
heavy on
bring
the
up
combat.
MLW, because I've had you watch MLW
Well, that's
because
what-
we
that's
have a couple
exactly what I
past
was
guests
gonna
of
say.
our show from MLW.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly what I was gonna say. Is we've had a couple guys on from there, and doing the research for the show and such. I have been more entertained by their entertainment. That's for sure. I'll have to maybe give them a little deeper dive and see what I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've had the likes of, and then it works out too, because he's getting ready to fight again. But MLW, I'm a big fan of them. We've had the likes of Myron Reed just was on with us a few weeks ago. We just had Tom Lawler back on before Warrior went down, before all the pandemic stuff. Got to do that one in person. So there's a lot of guys over there. I mean, hell, King Mo's coming back for them, which is right up your alley, Corey. So I mean, like I said, MLW might be the one to check out. But before we get into Mission Pro Wrestling, as somebody, like I said, as a fellow guy who's trying to get into broadcasting myself, my question for you is, now that you and Busted Open have been around so long, are there any specific, whether like the place it took place, the person who it was, are there any like specific either interviews or interactions or things like that for the show that stick out to you? And if so, which one would be your favorite interview for Busted Open?
Wow, that's a great question. Hold on one second, because I got like a piece of memorabilia that I'll show as one.
Cool.
I got it. Where is it? I know it's somewhere. Here it is. Hold on. So, and there's a lot. Like, probably the best moment for me would be our 10-year anniversary party, which I can't believe has already been 2 years. But it was in New York. It was the Saturday before WrestleMania 35. And was at a restaurant called Habanero Blues right in Manhattan, not far from walking distance from Madison Square Garden. So I remember I stayed in the city that day, and I was in a hotel, and I went to the venue about 3 hours before the start of our show. And when I got to the street, I saw that there was a line coming out of Habanero Blues, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's something, what's going on? There's like something going on here. Like, I hope it doesn't interfere with our show. And it turned out that was a line of people waiting to get in to see our show. And they almost called the fire marshal. We had over 700 people show up. So that was, when you finally, when you're doing it in a studio on the microphone, it's one thing. But when you actually go out and you see like a crowd of people kind of come to show up, it's definitely awe-inspiring to be able to do that. The other one, and this is the reason why I just stepped off camera, is right before WrestleMania 29 in New Jersey, which is obviously where I grew up and where I've raised and where I've lived my entire life. They had Radio Row where we could do all the interviews. And it was at the Meadowlands. So the Meadowlands is where my father would take me to see wrestling. So one of the interviews I did, and this is one of my all-time favorite interviews, was with Sergeant Slaughter.
Awesome.
And I had the program with me that, from one of the shows that my dad took me to. It's
so dope.
1985, and I brought it with me because, so many great memories. And the main event was Flair and Sergeant Slaughter. And Sergeant Slaughter autographed it for me. But he actually got emotional when I was telling him about, like, just the experience with my dad, and and he got like teary-eyed, sharing that memory with me. So to do an interview with somebody I grew up watching in a venue that I went to so many times as a kid, that was like a really cool experience. And then, another one is anytime I get to talk to Ric Flair, because
I figured Flair would come in there at some point.
Ric Flair is my all-time favorite. So, anytime
you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, and anytime I get to talk to him, and we've become friends over the years. So, like, that's my all-time favorite wrestler. So that's definitely one for sure.
So I can totally relate with the interview moment, because the first big event we got to work as a show was StarCast 3, and our buddy's show, Breaking Down the Ring, had a booth, and DDP happened to sit next to us, right? And my buddy had his signs up and stuff, and he looks over and looks at us and looks over and looks at us. So you guys are a podcast. So you gonna interview me, bro? And I'm like, well, shit, I'm not gonna say no. So with no prep, no nothing, it was cool. And then like the whole rest of the weekend, man, you're just sitting there like, dude, this is dope. I've been watching this dude since I was like a kid, and then in that same weekend, like I said, we got to kick it with him and multiple others. And even with Flair. Flair was a big highlight for me to get to meet, the same as Stone Cold, which happens to be my all-time favorite. But I need to ask you about the business that we've got going down May 1st, man. I want to know, first of all, what the hell went wrong, man? Because for those that don't listen to Busted Open, you were one of the biggest Thunder Rosa fans that you'll find. And then shit just went south, man. She ripped your shirt in half, and what the hell, man? So what are your thoughts on May 1st in Mission Pro Wrestling?
Well, it's not even my thoughts. I'm going to throw facts at you. So, Busted Open's been a big supporter of Thunder Rosa, even long before the appearances with AEW, long before the appearances with the NWA. Thunder Rosa was on our show. Complete support. Loved her. Awesome guest. And she's always great. So she had the big match with Britt Baker, as you know, that everybody was talking about.
It was great, too, by the way.
Awesome match. So every year after the Rumble, I do what I call the WrestleMania T-shirt challenge. So every day after the Rumble, leading up to WrestleMania, every show I wear a different pro wrestling shirt.
Yep.
So I wore 3 or 4 different Thunder Rosa shirts during that challenge. And then one day I happened to wear a Britt Baker T-shirt. So she goes off on me about wearing the Britt Baker T-shirt. All right, so that's one thing. So then we get her on the air. We clear the air, okay? We clear the air about the Britt Baker T-shirt. And she says to me, you know what, Dave? I got one of your Dave LaGreca T-shirts, Dave LaGreca Girl T-shirts. I'm going to wear it next week, either on AEW or at the NWA pay-per-view. We're back for the attack.
Yep.
Well, I watched AEW. Thunder Rosa appeared. She wasn't wearing a Dave LaGreca T-shirt. Then that weekend, I watched the NWA pay-per-view. Watched the whole pay-per-view. Thunder Rosa wrestled. She didn't wear my T-shirt. So she lied. So I went nuts on the air. You said you're going to wear my T-shirt. I wear your T-shirt. I support you. You don't support me. And she heard it, went nuts. Then she came on my show, had the T-shirt on, ripped it, wiped her ass with my T-shirt. So now, Mission Pro Wrestling, the biggest gate they've ever had. You're welcome. Okay, biggest gate they're going to have May 1st. Never have sold this many tickets. Pre-pandemic, pandemic, doesn't matter. This is the biggest show. You're welcome, Mission Pro Wrestling. You're welcome, Thunder Rosa. All right? I hope everybody, when I get there, thanks me for the house, because they got their biggest house they've ever had May 1st. Now, everybody's expecting a match on May 1st. Let me tell you something. I'm not an athlete. You can look at me right now. I'm not an athlete. I'm not a professional wrestler. She's one of the best pro wrestlers out there. So, listen, I'm not going to go there with violent intentions. I'm going there. I'm going to step in the ring. I'm going to talk to her face-to-face in front of her hometown, right, in Buda, Texas. This is where she's from. Mission Pro Wrestling is her home. I'm a visitor. But I demand that she apologizes for lying to me, apologizing for disrespecting my shirt, wiping her ass. I want an apology. Now, if things get violent, I'm going to tell you breaking news. I haven't talked to anybody, but I'm doing it here.
That's what I'm talking about.
3 counts, all right? I have a plan. If things do go south, I have a plan. So, believe me, if she has violent intentions and things turn violent, I have a plan in store for Thunder Rosa on May 1st. There's still tickets left, so anybody that's listening, there's only a few tickets. There's not many, okay? Not many. Other Mission Pro Wrestling, you can pick any seat you want. Oh, I want that one. 5 minutes before showtime, I'll take that. No, not May 1st. May 1st, very limited tickets left. So make sure you get your tickets and see what happens between me and Thunder Rosa May 1st.
Man, I mean, now you're just building the suspense even more, man. I just hope that this escape plan works out, and that brings up
whoa. It's not an escape plan.
Okay.
All right? I'm not running away. I'm not running. There's no running. I have a plan. If things go south, believe me, I have a plan in store for Thunder Rosa. Now, let me ask you guys. Now, here are the facts. These are the facts, the way things have happened. You listen to the show every day, okay?
Correct.
You know. So, don't you think that I am owed an apology? I deserve an apology for the things that she's done and said on social media? I mean, she doesn't let up. Every day she's tweeting about me on social media. The things she's done on my show, I mean, yes or no? Do I deserve an apology?
I gotta say, man, you did. I mean, she did offer it up, and I mean, she did kind of take it to that next level with ripping it up.
She took it to the next level,
and then wiping her ass with it. Only thing I gotta tell you, man, you know, again, us being a fight show, you gotta be careful, man. You might have poked the bear on this one, but luckily for you, I know Mark's probably gonna be down there with you in Texas, so at least you've got a world's strongest backup plan. But the one escape plan that I did want to ask you about, something else.
No, wait, really quick. First of all, you keep bringing up escape plan. There's no escape plan.
I wasn't going to talk about the match. I was talking about with Violetta.
You mentioned Mark Henry. Mark Henry, as far as I know, will be there on May 1st, but he is not part of my plan. I am not going to involve Mark Henry. So my plan that I have in place does not involve Mark Henry.
So the plot thickens, man.
Yes.
Corey, what are you thinking, man?
I'm thinking that I need to explain this damn New York Mets hat from halfway through the episode earlier. No, I do the same thing that you were referencing earlier with the T-shirts. I try to keep the hats rotating through every episode. So
okay, all right.
You happen to join me on the lovely Mets snapback day.
All right, so this is see, Corey, I'm glad you brought that up. So you're wearing a Mets hat. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're a diehard Mets fan, correct?
By no means. I am a huge baseball fan, but not necessarily just the Mets. I might enjoy the team, but they're not my favorite by no means.
See, Corey gets it. So I was wearing a Britt Baker T-shirt, and I all respect to Britt Baker, but if you were to ask me who's my favorite, I'm going to say Thunder Rosa. Not anymore. But if you asked me at the time, I would say Thunder Rosa. But I was wearing a Britt Baker T-shirt, just like Corey, big pro wrestling fan, every day a different shirt.
Yep.
That's all. And she got very sensitive about it, very, very sensitive about it. So now there's the big showdown, the big face-off on May 1st.
Hey, man, I like it. So before we get your final words, if you have any for Thunder Rosa, what's going to be your escape plan from Violetta, man? Because I know you had a hard time trying to get to Florida because of the COVID. How the hell did you talk her into letting you go to Mission Pro Wrestling, or was it just because you had to handle your business?
Well, I mean, and this is another excellent question. When this was just brought up, like this all started like less than 3 weeks ago. Like it'll be 3 weeks ago on Friday that this start, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like this is all kind of escalated. But on that show, it was a Friday with Mark, and Thunder Rosa, came on, and this is where it started. This is how it started. And, I work from home. Obviously, I'm home. I haven't done anything during this pandemic. I haven't left the house except to go grocery shopping. And in the office next to mine is where my wife works. So during one of the breaks, she's hearing all this commotion, and she goes, "You're not going anywhere. Like you haven't been vaccinated." And so I went on the air that day, and I'm like, "Listen, I want to take care of business. I want to confront Thunder Rosa, but my wife Violetta, and the wife is always right. Happy wife, happy life." I said, I haven't got vaccinated yet, so I can't leave, without getting vaccinated. That day, I got so many people reach out to me. "Oh, I could get you in here. I could get you in there." So on Monday, this upcoming Monday, will be my second vaccination. So I'll be vaccinated this Monday before the end of the week, where I go out to Buda, Texas. So I'll have my shots, both of them. So I'll be ready to rock, ready to go, man. But
I love it.
That's
Dude.
what you said. Thanks to the nation, because if they didn't reach out, I don't know if I would have been able to go out there.
Hey, I love it, dude. I can't wait to get to Texas and see what's going on. Like I said, man, I know we're short on time, and you got to watch the rest of NXT. That's where I'll be headed once this is over. But if you've got any last words for Thunder Rosa, please feel free to let them go. And if there's any other matches besides your own personal business you got to handle that you think people need to check out May 1st for Mission Pro Wrestling at MPW Locked and Loaded, please feel free to let them know.
Yeah, well, please, I need as much support as I possibly can, because I know you're saying, "Yeah, LaGreca, come on the show, blah, blah, blah." But that night on May 1st, you'll be rooting for Thunder Rosa. I get it.
That's cold-blooded, Dave.
We'll see. We'll see, because, we'll see if she comes on here before Mission Pro Wrestling, and you're going to be going, Dave was on, blah, 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 throw me under the bus.
Man, you think I'm a turncoat that quick, man? Come on. Just because he's wearing a net hat doesn't mean I got to be a turncoat.
But anyway, I hope I get your support. But I don't really have any. I got to be honest with you. I have no ill will towards Thunder Rosa at all. I want an apology. She owes me an apology. We could just have this end. We could squash this on May 1st, okay? And you know what? Even to support Thunder Rosa even more, I'll show up with a Thunder Rosa t-shirt on. I'll wear a Thunder Rosa t-shirt. I'll just say, "You know what? Let's squash this. If you apologize, you need to apologize to me." She has to apologize for lying to me. She has to apologize for some of the vulgarity she's used towards me. She's going to have to apologize for ripping up my shirt. She's going to have to apologize for wiping her ass with my shirt. So, she's got a lot of apologizing to do. So but I'm in the right. I'll give her the opportunity to apologize. That's it. No will. I got nothing bad to say about Thunder Rosa.
I hear it, man. Well, like I said, man, I hope you get your justice come May 1st, Dave. And I promise you, I am on your corner on this one, man. I can't wait to see what goes down May 1st for Mission Pro.
I want an apology May 1st. And if she wants
we need an apology, Thunder Rosa. We need an apology. So we're going to have to see what happens, man.
And if you get her on, I want you to let her know if she doesn't give me the apology and things go south, I got a plan. I'm a smart guy. I created the number one sports talk show on Sirius XM. I created the number one sports talk show. Okay, I'm smart. You don't think I got a plan for Buda, Texas? Please. I got a plan.
Hey, the man's thinking. The man's got a plan. Like I said, make sure you're checking him out. 9 a.m. tomorrow, Busted Open Radio, Sirius XM. I'll be listening. You guys need to be too. And Dave, once again, like I said, I really appreciate the time, man.
Nice to meet you. I'll see you on May 1st. Corey, I know you aren't going to be there because you don't like wrestling, but you know what? I enjoyed talking to you, and go Mets.
Hey, go baseball, and I'm just glad to have a season flowing. That's what I'm happy for. I'm just
until I see you with another hat on, then I'm gonna.
You're the Mets guy, bro. Hold on. Oh shit! You done pulled his punk card.
Which one? Should
okay.
Just within hand's reach. Where should I?
All right.
Should I go?
Okay. He's got a lot of hats.
Pittsburgh. Should I go? Detroit?
I don't know. Detroit Tigers. I don't know.
I know, man. What the hell?
The home team. I don't know.
Man, it disappoints me so much the fact that we have the most basic colors in all of the league: blue, navy blue and white, and navy blue and orange. At least the Mets has a little flair with
crispy.
their
The
blue.
iconic Detroit D is where it's at, bro.
Yeah, I gotta go.
Later, boss.
Later, brother.
I appreciate you. Like I said, check him out May 1st and tomorrow on Sirius
Thank you,
XM.
guys. Thank you.
Appreciate you, brother. Cool. Yeah. You're good, Dave.
Okay, thanks, guys, man. I appreciate it, dude.
No, not a problem.